Hello, my name is host Eric. I'm the host of Talking with Famous People and a fellow lover of cheese like you. Something we share. Anyhow, the important thing isn't that. That's not the important thing. The important thing is today's topic, which seems like a good topic to me anyway. My GTM mates here can redirect me if they wish, but it's system theory. So I'm going to start by reading this thing. I'm going to put it up on the screen here, like so, and I make it a little bigger. So, systems theory, social units, composition and relation with the environment. Hegel developed in the 19th century a theory to explain historical development as a dynamic process. Marx and Darwin used this theory in their work. System theory, as we know it, was used by L. von Butterfly, a biologist, as the basis for the field of study known as general system theory, multidisciplinary field, 1968. Some influences from the contingency approach can be found in system theory. System theory is the transdisciplinary study of the abstract organization of phenomena, independent of their substance, type, or spatial or temporal scale of existence. It investigates both the principles common to all complex entities and the usually mathematical models which can be used to describe them. A system can be said to consist of four things. First is objects, the parts, elements, or variables within the system. These may be physical or abstract or both, depending on the nature of the system. Second, the system consists of attributes, qualities or properties of the system and its objects. Third, the system has internal relationships among its objects. Fourth, systems exist in an environment. A system, then, is a set of things that affect one another within an environment and form a larger pattern that is different from any of the parts. The fundamental systems interactive paradigm of organizational analysis features the continual stages of input throughout processing and output, which demonstrate the concept of openness, closedness. A closed system does not interact with its environment, it does not take in information, and therefore is likely to atrophy, that is, to vanish. An open system receives information which it uses to interact dynamically with its environment. Of course, most closed systems that we're interested in do not vanish because they are human-made. And they are like math and stuff like that, and grammar. An open system receives information which it uses to interact dynamically with its environment. Openness increases its likelihood to survive and prosper. Several system characteristics are wholeness and interdependence. The whole is more than the sum of all parts. Correlations, preceding causes, chain of influence, hierarchies, suprasystems, and subsystems, self-regulation and control, goal-oriented interchange with the environment, inputs, outputs, the need for balance, homeostasis, change and adaptability, morphogenesis, and equifinality. There are various ways to achieve goals. Different types of networks are line, commune, hierarchy, and dictator networks. Communication in this perspective can be seen as an integrated process, not as an isolated event. So, you'll note here there are 5 things going on. Simple system model. Environment, input, transformation, output, feedback. Systems perspective believes communication occurs among independent units that work together to adapt to an ever-changing environment. Maybe too broad and general to build theory, does not yield much explanatory power, has not generated much empirical or theoretical research. Well, I mean, it's so obviously true, you know. This is how the world works, you know. It works from a systems perspective, and to the extent that we try to lock it down into something non-systemic, we falsify reality. Wow, what a great website I just happened upon here. Elaboration likelihood model. Let me not get off topic though. So, okay, back to the issue of system theory. If we understand system theory as meaning that we can't really understand, okay, well, how predictive can it be? Okay, well, for one thing, I think a simple fact of systems theory that's important to remember, that's useful, potentially, is this. Several systems characteristics are wholeness and independence. The whole is more than the sum of the parts. Correlations, perceiving causes, chain of influence, hierarchy, supersystems and subsystems, self-regulation and control, goal-oriented interchange of the environment, inputs, outputs, the need to balance homeostasis, change and adaptability, and equifinality. So, okay, with that, the reason I think that it's relevant to reread that little section there is because, to me, this is really interesting for the purpose of trying to generate, as I continue to, my Milk Lab framework for argumentation, which attempts to render all arguments into a fairly limited number of vectors rather than dealing with warrants directly. Because in argumentation, most of the time you're going to have a reason like, well, no, it's true that sometimes just war is called for and there are just uses of force that produce goods. And you might give an example of the Kuwait War, where we pushed out Saddam Hussein. You might give an example of World War II or something. You might give an example of the Revolutionary War. I don't know. But the point is, they're all the same vector, regardless of which example you use. It's all a historical example is the vector there, right? So for me, a systems theory is going to allow me to better understand what I need to incorporate into my system, because I'm still slogging through it and figuring it out. I think I've got it. Basically, slogging through it means reducing the number of variables. Yeah, it's useful for me as a tool because I just go into things without doing any research ever. So, like, it's incredibly stupid to think to be like that. But I do all the time where I just feel like, well, I don't want to research anything. I just want to start playing with my idea, and I don't want to spoil my idea by finding out some other things about it, that already exist. I just want to play with it. And so I don't research it at all. And then, like, I don't know anything about systems theory or anything. So when I read that shit, I'm like, oh, this is kind of important. I should have known this already. But whatever. I've learned it now, or at least I can reference that back and go, all right. So when I'm going to the Milk Lab, because in the Milk Lab you've got an environment which is basically a game space. Within the game space, you've got objects including the game board, I guess. But I mean, functionally, the game space and the game board are functionally the same thing. Okay, so, and it's a turn-based debate, argumentation, strategy game in which you make, framework arguments, meta-framework arguments, all kinds of different arguments you can make. But it'll be like a trading card game, though. Anyway, the purpose of the system theory for me is to better understand, well, for example, this. There is a reality that I'm wrestling with right now. I would like to see America, I mean, it's a weird thing to say. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I would like to see America think better. And I think I can help. So it's important to me to understand systems theory because ultimately that is a system I'm trying to work there, right? Trying to figure out a way in which I can affect measurable, ideally, change in people's thinking through active verbalized metacognition and through, well, I think there's a just practicing what I preach element to certain parts of it, like the transparency thing. I think transparency lets people understand that it's okay. It's not that big a deal. Whatever it is that they're so, concerned about or whatever. So, I think, a lot of people are very much more concerned than I am about things in general. I'm largely unconcerned. So, and I think it's good to be unconcerned. I think we want to behave as citizens living in a safe, free, fair, just, and rights-respecting country. And I think by and large we do, or I do. I mean, maybe not as ex-architect because he lives in Australia. In Australia, they arrest you if you wear a hat. It's true. Any kind of hat. They're illegal there. So are shoes. Makes it tough to walk around. That's why Australians are such a sedentary people. The active ones all moved to New Zealand. Anyhow, systems theory. System theory is something you can sort of frame out just about anything in life with, right? Like, for example, my dry jokes, like I just made about Australia. It's something that what do you do when logic and empathy are at odds? Okay, well, I think that's a really good question. I think that deserves some video. Although both those things are systems theory's questions, so it's potentially useful to apply this systems theory stuff to that. It would just say that, I mean, it's a particularist viewpoint in a way. It says every situation is contextually specific. However, it doesn't necessarily preclude that certain systems trump other systems in a hierarchy of systems, in a hierarchy of systems or within a system. So, let's explore that issue separately now. Let's talk about that. That's a really good one. What do you do when your logic and your empathy conflict? Coming up next on Talking with Famous People.